Recording. Okay, we are now recording. Hello, everyone. I'm Pamela McBride. I'm with the Greenfield Public Library, and welcome to Meet Your Neighbors, our monthly program that we now run on Zoom. And we are so lucky tonight. We have Laura from the Greenfield Garden Club, plus a few other members to talk to us about the Greenfield Garden Club and the great things they're going to do. And then hopefully time for some questions, a little discussion. I will point your attention to the chat. Barbara Sutherland has already entered something. She has raspberry stalks if anyone is interested. So feel free to use the chat if you are looking, if you have a question, or if you have something you'd like to give away. You can put it in the chat for other people to look at. So tonight's program, as all the library programs are thanks to the Friends of the Greenfield Public Library. Without them, we would not be able to do this. So we're very grateful for them. And I have one little plug. This Saturday at the Greenfields Farmers Market, Pat Lightman is going to be the guest of the Greenfield Public Library Foundation. She will be there. She's going to talk. Are you going to talk about your book, Pat?
Well, I have it.
Okay. Answer questions. And she's going to have cardinal flower shoots for anyone who's interested. So stop on by. Okay. And I'm now going to ask everyone, except for Laura, to please mute themselves, so we don't have any background noise while she is presenting herself. And Laura, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Pamela. I'm sharing my screen. Can everybody see my slide?
Yes.
Okay. I guess you're going to have to nod because we're all muted right now.
I'm not, but I'll be quiet.
Well, I've been in a lot of Zoom meetings over the pandemic, but I haven't done anything where I've sort of been doing a slideshow, so bear with me. So something I found very interesting, many of you probably know Jan McGuan Adam, who was a longtime president of the club. And recently, when she moved permanently to Florida, I kept getting emails saying, I've got something else from the garden club. And so I had this whole box of slides. And I thought, why am I getting these slides? They're from the 60s and the 70s. And then I discovered that in some of the articles that I find fascinating, that I'm going to have to go really check further, is that I think the club was founded in 1927 originally. And there was something in one of the boxes that showed that a lot of the material, the notes and things, has been given, meaning loaned, to the Pecumtuck Valley Memorial Association. So the club owns it, but they have it. So now I know where I can give a lot of the things that I've inherited. So let's see. Annette. Annette is here this evening. This is a shot of her backyard in the spring. Absolutely beautiful with those forget-me-nots. So I thought I would intersperse some of this little show with some pictures. And a lot of these plants end up at our spring plant sale. So, or, contact the club. I'll have some contact information at the end if you're interested in trying to track down some plants. So again, it appears that we were started in 1927. I'm not sure if it was an ongoing club or if it had, it fits and starts along the way, but I know that it was disbanded in the late 80s and started up again in the early 90s. And that's the club as we have it now. Although, of course, many things change over time. Trap Plain was one of the early places where the club decided to put in a garden. They tended it for quite a while, up until maybe 5 or 6 years ago, when we just couldn't get the volunteers to get over there and get it weeded. Richard Willard was trying to get it back into shape, and we couldn't get more than 5 or 6 people at a time to come. So we gave it ownership back to the town, so to speak. But this is where, we used to sell the tickets for the garden tour. We had our extravaganza plant sale there. I'm amazed that we always had so many people because parking was such a bit of a problem in that little juncture of town. So Richard tells me that there were probably about 200 people originally that were interested in getting the club back up on its feet and running again. And one of the first things they did was to draft up more bylaws. And that took such a while that people started to drift away because it really wasn't what they wanted to do. They were gung-ho about getting out and doing things. So I'm not sure how many members it ended up with, but maybe 150 or something. And then one of the first things they did was ask the garden centers to offer a discount to members. And to my mind, it's a little sad to see that so many of those places have just been going out of business, 5 Acre Farm and Fairview Farm up in Northfield. And you've got LaSalle florists who are probably going to be going out in the next year or two. And here's the 1991 bylaws that sort of gives the background, the beginning statement of what the club was all about. People interested in gardening, wanting to stimulate interest in gardening in the community. We're really lucky to have things like Green and Greenfield and Greenfield Tree Committee, among other groups that really are strong proponents of gardening, among other things in Greenfield, which is great. Helping maintain public gardens, monuments, other community properties. We did a little cleanup at the library this spring and gave them some mulch just to, tidy everything up, make it look nice. Promoting knowledge, awareness, and interest in gardening through public programs and demonstrations. So, a lot of our meetings will have, like, Stacy Chapley will come up and show us how to make fountains. That was a really fun meeting. A lot of us got pretty wet in the process, but it was lots of fun. So we try to have fun and learn something at the same time. And we've had, public programs here and there where we've invited a relatively big name speaker to come, sometimes at our annual meeting, and, show slides and give a talk and maybe sell books, sign books, things like that. One of the groups that we support on an annual basis is the Bridge of Flowers. I was so thrilled to get this picture this summer because I've seen all these people with these pictures of bees, derrieres hanging out of flowers, or bees sleeping in flowers on Facebook. And I finally got my own photo of a bee in that position. One of the things that we're not doing right now, and may or may not come back, or it may come back in a different form, was the barrel contest. And I was looking back at some previous newsletters, and 34 barrels were adopted in 2008 in the summer, even by people not even in Greenfield. I couldn't find the categories that they judged by, but if you look at the other piece on the left here, you'll see that in the wintertime, that contest had Judge's Choice, Most Creative, Best Holiday Theme, and Best Barrel Adopted by a Business. And I know that Jan was trying to work on bringing some form of this back, but it's something we could probably pursue in the future if there's enough interest. One of our visits recently was down to Quonquont Farm. They were super gracious hosts. They took us on this whole traipse around their property. We sampled apples from their orchard and went through their blueberry patch and got a little mini primer on pruning. And then we ended up in their perennial beds where they were discussing, what they do with them and the weddings they hold and things like that. And it was just, a magical time of evening to be there. And of course, we ended up in the gift shop where we dropped, we made them happy that we came to visit. Let's put it that way. Which is always nice to be able to pick up a few interesting things. Here's another thing that we haven't done lately, but I know they've been calling us to see if we could get back on the roster. The community meal, we did that once a year. And I think it was a little bit when I first joined the club. So they were putting, flowers on the tables for people just to spruce it up, make it look nice. So if we could get some people that are interested in maybe forming a committee, we might bring that back. Bug Hill Farm was one of our trips this summer. We went up to Ashfield. We had a wonderful walk looking at all the berries that they have, very unusual things. And they also make things with their berries. You're all probably familiar with them. but they were so sweet, and they had everything set up afterwards for a tasting. We got to taste all their vinegars. We tasted all their jams. Let's see, black and blue and berry noir. Can't really read all of those, but it was very tasty, very fun. We really enjoyed it. So we do have a good time. Here's the steering committee for this year. I'm the president. Marcia Stone is the vice president. Joanne's our treasurer. Annette, who's here this evening, is our recording secretary. Eva is our corresponding secretary, and our member at large is Nikki Shipman. So we're always looking for new members. I know that Joanne is thinking about moving out of the area, so we'll have an opening for treasurer probably at the next annual meeting. One of the things if you see in the left-hand side, I was looking through old documents and I saw that you could not serve more than 2 years. So I've way overextended my stay in this position, but if someone's interested in being president, please let me know. I'm sure my husband would like to see me. I also do the Facebook page, I do the newsletter, and our website. So it's a fair amount of work, and I'd love to be able to have someone else come and help me out on some of those things. When I first started, we did have committees. It's interesting. I think they're always looking for members, because at my first meeting, it was at the Whately Inn. Probably, I see myself as treasurer on that 2008 newsletter. So it must've been around that area that I joined, and immediately became treasurer. And I haven't been off the steering committee since. So it's one of those things that, like Hotel California, you can check out, but you can never leave. So we used to have committees. So I was on the finance committee. There was a nominating committee, programs, and some others, but I don't know if it's the nature of clubs or the word club. People just don't seem to have the time to invest that they used to. But I'm hoping that, we can get some new members, and if everyone takes a little slice of this, it will be so easy to maintain and keep things going. One of the things we did this year when we saw that you could buy a bee, basically, is we thought we'd get our name out there. And so we supported Bee Fest. This is up by the YMCA. So that was a fun thing to do, to get our name in front of people. So the annual meetings are usually held in the first quarter of the year, usually in January, but a few years ago we had some bad weather, so we tried for March. And then we tried for March in 2020, and then it's too bad we didn't hold it in January, because we all know what happened in March, and then we didn't have an annual meeting. And then the following year we Zoomed, because we'd learned how to do that. And I'm kind of hoping, if you'll see on the left, Jack is from Quonquont Farm, was supposed to be our speaker back in 2020. And I'm kind of hoping that 2022 might be the magical year where he'll come and talk about new varieties and show some slides and get us excited about gardening for the next season. So I'm looking forward to that. Gardens are just so beautiful. What's not to like? In fact, this makes me think, when I was at the fair, a woman was saying to me, "Oh, we have the garden club, and I'd like to join, but do you have to have a really nice garden?" I'm like, "Not at all." You don't have to have a really nice garden. You don't have to have a garden at all. It's just a group of people that love gardens, love flowers, love sharing, like going on trips. So, membership is open to anybody and everybody. No white gloves, no interrogations about, your gardening habits and things. One of the committees that people do like to sign up for is the grant committee, and that meets annually, usually. So it's a one-shot deal. And we usually give out about $2,000 to local groups with the grant program, looking for people. On the right-hand side, this is taken from our website, sort of describes who's able to submit a grant. And we do give them to mostly schools. Teachers send in the grants, but we've had libraries that are working with children with gardening, camps, and other nonprofits that have submitted. And we do try to help as many people out as we can. This is a rose arbor at Jacqueline Lejeune's house back when she lived in Bernardston. It was just glorious. I think that was a property that they rented, and it was paved, and they actually dug up what, 6 inches down or something, and, brought in soil and things, and they had this absolutely wonderful garden. So I think they've moved to Greenfield now, but that was a beautiful place. Here's our plant sale. Everybody's familiar with, I hope. Usually it's the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. Most of the plants are contributed by members. We collect them. Now we're at the John Zahn Center. We used to be at Trap Plain, then we moved to St. James before it was St. James and Andrews, and now we're over at John Zahn, which is a really nice fit for us. And we also have the Western Mass Master Gardeners usually have an informational booth. They do soil testing and answer questions. We've had the Greenfield Tree Committee there. This past year, it was kind of cool and chilly, but we had Just Roots there with their compost program, thinking that they could get the word out about that to people. So that's always a fun event. Hopefully we'll be able to hold it in the future. I hate to bring up jumping worms, but I hear there's a worm spreading in the area that's a bit invasive. Not that I understand regular worms are also invasives, but we tend to like them. But these jumping worms are not something that we want to spread. So we might have to think of a new fundraiser. I'm not sure. We'll see. Here's our spring cleanup at the library. Doing a little weeding, putting some mulch down. Keeping our 6-foot distance and masked. This is a time when we visited the Three Sisters out in Goshen, some of our group. The rest were still wandering the property. It's gorgeous. If you haven't been up there, it's definitely worth a visit. Our garden tour is our other fundraiser. It's a fair amount of work. So several years ago, we decided to do it every other year. So every other year turned out to be 2020. And we thought, well, we think we can do this safely in 2020. And we had to go back twice to reprint tickets. We had like over 200 people. We dropped the ticket price to $10 to make it affordable. Everyone had a fantastic time. People dressed up. They were so grateful to get out. People with their children. It was just a really wonderful time. Really, it was wonderful. Here's one of the gardens in Greenfield that was on the tour. Look for the daisy. This is the marker that shows when you follow your map/ticket, which house is on the tour. Moving on to the Franklin County Fair. This is this year's contribution. We don't normally follow the theme that the fair has, but this year it was Franklin County Fair. It's the bee's knees. So we ran with it. So we came up with the bee's knees B&B, and it's always a challenge every year to think of something to put in that little booth. And it's really not that big. When I had all these great ideas, and it's like, it's not that big. We have to really sort of cut back a little bit, but and as I'm saying up in the left-hand side, we do like to encourage children to be involved in gardening and really enjoy it. And back in 2019, since they had to miss 2020, we had an I Spy version of things. And it was, we made up the poems like the books, and everybody had a great time with that, trying to find the golf club and all these little things that we hid around. So that was fun. So we're always looking for new ideas. We're already thinking about next year. Annette, you're in my pictures a lot. So here's our November wreath and kissing ball event. It's an annual event. It happens every November. We always go to Stacy Chapley's place at Chapley Farms, or Gardens rather, in Deerfield. I believe it's around $10 or so, a little bit more for kissing balls. And she provides all the greenery. People are welcome to bring dried things from their gardens, grasses, berries, things like that. She, for a couple of bucks, she'll make you a beautiful ribbon bow to go for it on your wreath. And we encourage, again, younger members to come. It's fun for everybody. And of course, we do have food at most of our events. We like to eat, enjoy being cheerful with each other. And of course, that brings us to our December event, which I hope we can hold this year. We'll have to see. But it's our holiday party with our Yankee swap. And here's some of the gifts from a previous Yankee swap. The biggest present's not always the best, quote unquote, present, but everything's fun. Everything should be, garden related, and we have a good time. Here we are in a member's home, sitting around. Pat, I see it looks like you that's opening a gift here. So we have lots of fun. We don't steal gifts a whole lot, but it's fun. And of course we have dessert, and a lot of the recipes end up in our newsletter. And I threw this in because we had a great time recently. The New York Master Gardeners from Rensselaer County came to visit. They contacted us because I think they had originally contacted the Western Mass Master Gardeners, but they hadn't been able to get back to them. So someone said, reach out to the Greenfield Garden Club. So they did. And they said, well, we're going to come out on this date. I think it was August 26th, something like that. We want to see the Bridge of Flowers. And then we like to have lunch somewhere. And then we like to maybe go to a garden center or see some gardens. And I said, well, I'd be happy to provide you with some gardens. So I took the day off of work and I met them out at the Bridge of Flowers. They were the nicest people, absolutely sweethearts. They had lunch at Terrazza, and then I took them around to 3 members' gardens that had been on the tour that I thought they would enjoy. They were all quite different. Pat, that one of the gardens was Pat's. This picture is at my mother's house. She has a labyrinth in her backyard, and she's got a really beautiful ash tree there, as you can see, and a Japanese bridge and some things I thought they would enjoy seeing. So it'd be nice to repay the visit and go and see them sometime. So membership is interesting. When I was looking back at those older books, was $3 a person when I was looking at them back in the 50s. The first page that I looked at was dated 1959. A year after I was born. So $3, and I saw at one point it went up to $5, and now we're up to 20. When I first joined, I think it was 12. Inflation. So it's 20 a person, 25 a household. Here's where, if you're interested in joining, where you can mail your check. This is on our website. It's in our newsletter. We still have discounts at local businesses, Agway in particular. They're pretty strict about having you show your card, so make sure you have your card. Again, they make thoughtful gifts. We're always accepting new members. We encourage people to bring friends to meetings. I think looking through some of these books from older years, this has always been a theme, getting new people to join and encouraging people to sign up for things. And then staying in touch. We have our website. It used to be greenfieldgardenclub.org, but somebody bought that and tried to sell it back to us. And I said, no, thank you. And so now we are thegreenfieldgardenclub.org. We're on Facebook. So we encourage you to come by and see us there. Our newsletter, we try to get that out monthly. It's posted on our website, and I also send it out to everybody that's on our mailing list who's a member. And here's our email if you have any questions. We are Greenfield Garden Club, not but just plain Greenfield Garden Club at yahoo.com. Yep, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. That was great.
Yeah.
That's lots of great information. I am just going to put your attention to that Laura has some baby red buds, if anyone is interested in those. And there is a question. Oh, is there supposed to be an N in garden for the website?
Oh, it's very possible that I did this last minute. So yeah, the website is thegreenfieldgardenclub.org. So my apologies if I missed an N somewhere in there. There should be several.
You also
and
missed
an
an
L in
L.
club.
What did I do, Annette?
You missed an L in Greenfield in the email. You said Greenfield Garden Club.
Oh, well.
But obviously those are, and then it wasn't Laura with the red buds, it was me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Annette.
Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry, Annette.
that's okay. But if anyone wants a little red bud tree, they'll just tell me, and then I'll tell you how to contact me.
Okay, that sounds great. All right. I have a quick question before I open. I'm gonna use my position. What is a jumping worm?
Well, I think I scared everybody a little bit in one of my newsletters recently when I was talking about that. It's something that's working its way up here. That unlike regular worms, if you touch them, they jump around a lot, and there's some differences. If you search, UMass extension website probably, or just Google it, you'll see photos of what they look like and how they don't add anything back to the environment. They go through and like eat, like in a forest, the entire duff layer of that top layer of the forest and don't leave anything behind. So it stops some things from rooting in the forest, things that normally self-sow there and seed. They just decimate the area, and it's they're not a great thing. And I think, did I hear someone say Just Roots might have some, which is just down the road for me. I'm up in Leiden, so I'm like, great. I hope they don't eat their way through the woods up to my place. So I hate to be spreading things. And if you pot something up, you almost have to. I think that's why the Amherst Garden Club did not have a sale this year. They were thinking they'd have to like wash all the roots and repot in sterile soil, and it's so much work because even if the worms aren't in there, their eggs and might be, and you wouldn't be able to see them because they'd be so small. So something to be concerned about.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so question time. You can unmute yourselves now. Now is the chat portion of the program. So does anybody have a question for Annette or Laura or Pat or some advice?
I think I see some previous members.
So how's everybody's garden doing this fall, this late? Yes. Too much rain.
And I have chipmunks, I have voles. It's just like, my cherry tomatoes in the garden are just littered on the ground with a bite out of them. And it's like, really?
Yeah, the only thing I've been lucky
We now have I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Pat.
We now have rabbits in our garden.
Yes.
And when we first moved here, which was 6 years ago, we never saw a rabbit, but then we saw one occasionally. But now we have quite a friendly rabbit who visits us with some regularity.
Well,
And
you know, Pat,
we think actually there was a nest, and but they haven't all stayed there.
Pat,
Yeah, right.
this is Carol, and I just want to tell you that this afternoon I saw a rabbit hop down the sidewalk towards Beach Street.
Well, thank you. We stand warned.
And Carol's not telling you that she's putting little treats to encourage away from her place.
Earlier this summer, I went outside. I actually got up early one day, which isn't usually me. And I was looking, and suddenly this red animal ran across, and it was a red fox. And it was coming from next door, and it had managed to get underneath my fence, and it was living under the shed of my neighbor. And then I heard about the birds. I leave bird seed out, and I heard about the birds, dying of this strange disease that you may have heard about. So I was going on vacation, so around the end of July, so I stopped feeding the birds. And so for the last 6 weeks, I haven't fed them. And all my I haven't got so many chipmunks. Things have disappeared. I think it's probably done some good to give the garden a rest from all the seeds I was giving it, because I think the birds were just, scattering them everywhere. But now I've started to do it again, because I do like to see the birds, around the bird feeder.
Yes, there have been a lot of chipmunks this year.
Yes.
I have quite the clan.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, I went through 3 different plantings of sunflowers this year and eaten completely by the chipmunks. And in previous years, it hasn't been that case.
No.
I mean, I planted 24 of them.
And didn't get any. Oh.
What did you plant?
Sunflowers.
What a shame.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
But we have fox and deer where we live. So the fox take care of the rabbits, and the deer takes care of our fruit trees.
Yeah, I have a fox den underneath my shed.
You do, yes,
But unfortunately, they left early this year,
yes.
and then the chipmunks moved in. So
Because I think that's what happened to these foxes, because I haven't noticed them recently. So they must leave. I don't know where they go after they've been there for a while. Does anyone know where they go?
no, but I had heard that they have multiple dens. So
Oh,
my understanding is they'll start a litter in one place, but then
yes.
they will move them as they get
Oh,
older, and then they get kicked to the, to go find their own homes. So
yes. Oh, interesting. Yeah. It was we did the fair this year, and we worked on this bee's knees bed and breakfast thing, and I got some tall flowers with white. I think they must have been garlic. They certainly smelled of like onion or something like that. They were very tall, and they had these little white flowers on the top, so they weren't chives, which is a totally different flower. And the bees seemed to be hovering around them when I bought them. So when I got home, I just left them outside the car. When I got home, the bees were swarming them. So when I took them up to our little booth and put them there. And I was explaining this to one of my friends a couple of days later when we were looking at the booth. I was explaining it, and suddenly there was a bee in the booth, a real bee, flitting around, smelling these flowers, which obviously are definitely be to keep for bees.
mhm.
And I thought it was kind of neat that was our first actual resident of our bed and breakfast, was an actual bee.
Anyone have any questions about what they're happening or it's not happening in your gardens this year? It has been an excellent year for figs. I have 4
Figs?
fig trees, and they have
Oh.
chipmunks don't like the figs, which I'm very lucky.
Oh,
Now, do you keep your figs outside all the
Where-
year?
No, it's too cold up here.
Yes.
The frost line is too deep, so they are in big pots,
Yes.
and they come in the winter. The first year I had figs, because I'd moved up from Pennsylvania, I
Yes.
tried to keep them in the ground and learned and lost them. So I was like, no, it's
So where do
too
you
cold.
keep them in your house? I mean, in big pots. How do you get them?
Well, we let them go dormant. We have this corner in the garage that's
Oh,
kind of
yes.
insulated so
Yeah.
that it doesn't get too cold,
Right.
but just
Right.
cold enough for them, but it doesn't get, too frigid.
So it's not a heated
No,
place, but
no,
it's just out of the cold.
just out. Yeah.
That's good to know.
But
Yeah.
it's been a wonderful year for figs. I think they have enjoyed all the rain.
Yes.
We keep ours in our root cellar and
Oh.
water it once a month, maybe.
Yeah.
But it goes dormant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes.
I tried growing ours last year outside, and thankfully I saved a twig because it roots very off it. So we burlapped, we put leaves and burlap and protected the whole thing, and it died.
Yeah.
oh
It
dear.
happened to me too. Yeah.
But I saved a branch, and so we have another fig tree started in a pot, which we're just going to
Wow.
keep bringing in and out.
Oh, great.
So when
I
you did the branch, did you stick that in root stuff, root
No.
powder? No.
I took a couple branches and I just put it in a baggie with
Yes.
water and set it in a vase. And it sat by my window all winter. I just made sure there was water in it. And 2 of them rooted and 1 of them didn't. So
Wow.
Nice.
Yes.
Did you get any fruit this year?
no, it's because it's now
It's too small.
it was a branch.
Yeah.
Well, Pamela, when you get a decent amount of figs, how many figs does each one produce?
I would say that, well, we have 4 trees, 2 which are smaller. I would say that we probably have a total of 5 to 6 dozen, which is a lot.
Holy cow.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm hoping to get some jam, a small batch of fig jam, except I come home from work and they've been eaten. not by critters, but it's like, you pick them and I'm like, oh, I've got almost enough. And then I come home and I'm like, oh, you snacked on them all. It's so tasty. It's nothing like a fresh fig. So yeah, this has been probably the most successful year we've had with figs. So we're like in fig heaven right now.
Did you get your trees from Dancing Bear Farm?
2 of them we got from Dancing Bear, and the other 2 I actually picked up as a whim at the farmer's market with Dave with Rainbow Farm.
Yep.
His little place. But then the other 2 we have gotten from Dancing Bear, and he's been great because my husband really kind of takes care of the fig trees, and he's so great. You send him a picture in the fall and he tells you where you should prune it, and he's been really helpful, and just lots of really good basic practical advice. So I highly recommend, if you're looking into figs, because they are just an amazing fruit, that you talk to him. Yeah,
I expect they like the sun, do they?
they do. They like a lot of sun. They do like the hot weather. You have to be careful not to overwater them,
Yes.
which of course has been an interesting challenge this year.
Mm.
But especially with the cool, they like it's late in the season, they really
Yes.
to enjoy the cooler nights.
Yes.
And that really seems to make them pop,
Yes.
and to ripen quicker. So it's been a fun learning experience.
Mm,
Who knew you could have so much fun growing figs? So Laura, you're trying to actually get rid of some forsythia.
Yeah, I've got some plants left over from the plant sale that are still sitting in pots at my place. And I think I have 2 forsythia plants that I'd love to, if anyone's interested.
Oh,
And,
okay.
okay.
Not a taker.
And email the club,
Okay,
Greenfield Garden Club at yahoo.com.
Yeah.
And I can bring them in. Do you want 1 or 2?
I'll take one. If no one wants the second one, I'll take that one too.
Okay.
I don't have any.
I have a lot of forsythia, but it's a great hedge.
Mhm.
And you just kind of chop it back and then you ignore it.
Well, if we're thinking about things other people might be able to use, I have epimediums.
Yes.
Anybody know epimediums?
Yes.
And they are growing amazingly. And I think maybe it's because they get just the right amount of shade and just a little bit of sun. But they have gotten too big, and I'm ready to dig any of the epimediums, and they're really wonderful because they're no more than a foot high, and they will have early in the spring flowers, little delicate flowers, and they're no trouble at all.
No, they're not. I have some too.
Mm.
They're difficult to dig up though, aren't they?
I can do it.
Oh, you can?
If anybody wants it, I
You're
can dig.
Do they have
I
a
can
deep
dig
root
them up.
system? Do they have a deep
They're
root?
a spring flower, and they kind of hang down. Lots of these little pink flowers or white ones. They're very pretty in the spring.
I think it's a bit of a matted root system. You just need a sharp spade.
Yes,
Okay.
you do. Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So this is what you should do, for like a fall fundraiser or a fall event, is you invite the public to come with their shovels and say, okay, you can dig here. Here.
That's good. That would be wonderful.
Here's the
Yes,
map.
you can
That
split-
is a really good idea. I have like some Stella Dore's iris
Daylilies.
daylilies that I need to thin. I have so many things right now that need thinning. I would
Mhm.
love people to come around with their spades.
Actually, yeah, that is actually, I'm thinking maybe I should just put the word out to everyone I know. Come to my house.
Please do, please do.
Yes, it would be easier than doing it. Just think how much you
Yes.
could get done.
Well, it's wonderful to have plants that take you from the early spring, like the epimediums. And right now, I'm kind of surprised at the plants I have blooming, and one of which is it is, now I'm going to forget the name of it, but it's a kind of
Is it the asters you were talking about?
it's not, it's kind of like an aster. It's, oh, this is ridiculous. But anyway, it's relatively small plant, and it blooms. It isn't even blooming yet. It's got buds and everything, but it's not blooming yet. And so it blooms right through October. And so it's kind of like an aster.
Mhm.
What
I'll
color
think
is
of
it?
Once we say goodbye, I'll think of the name of it.
Yes, yeah.
But pink, it's a pink flower, and it's really wonderful. I have it. I've brought some down to the energy park, and so if you're walking through the energy park, you will see this very soon.
One of the things we're going to have in the fall, are we going to do we usually do a thing with cider, with a cider tasting.
Mhm.
And I don't know whether we did it last year, but I think we sat outside because we must have done it. It must have been last year because we sat outside and Charlie,
Yep. So we're going to do it again this year. I know that we've emailed Charlie Olchowski to see if he'll come again and do a little like kind of an Oktoberfest.
Mhm.
So in latest October on a Sunday afternoon, we're just gathering around the fire pit at Marcia and Norm's house, and we're going to have hors d'oeuvres, and Charlie will hold forth on hard ciders and things like that, and we'll sample some.
Nice.
And it's a nice time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We always manage to have really good monthly meetings. They're always successful. And it, so just joining and coming to the monthly meetings is really worth it.
Mhm.
What else have we done? We've done that. We did the Bug Hill
Yeah,
thing.
we went to Nasami Farm.
Oh, we
Did a
went
nice
to the
tour
Salmon
there.
Farm.
Yep.
Yes. And then, yes, and the Bug Hill one was interesting. I don't know how they have the energy. They retired from he was a professor, and they retired and they bought this farm. Is it near, it's in Whately, isn't it?
Buck Hill Farm is in Ashfield.
Oh, Ashfield. And there's so many different berries that they have, that they grow. And it's quite labor intensive, it seems to me. But they have a little lake and acres and acres of stuff that they're planning to do stuff for just roots. I think they were going to do something like that. I mean, it was incredible what they were doing. I don't know how these people have the energy. I haven't got that energy.
They were a little younger than we are.
That's true. Yes.
And they were letting the perennial gardens kind of go, but they were focusing on the fruit.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
And they have, it's not like an Airbnb, but they have a glamping site there right on their beaver pond, which is very nicely laid out.
Yes. Yes, and the other year when we went to the Three Sisters that you mentioned, that was a fun outing.
Yep.
I was taking photos of the swamp, and everyone was shouting, and it turned out that there was a black bear. I didn't even realize I'd actually taken photos of this black bear. It went right into my field of view. So that was, you never know what you're going to come across on these gardens.
Fortunately, he was on the other side of the body of water.
Yeah, he was. He wasn't near us. He wasn't going to attack us or anything. Yeah. So we have we do have a lot of fun. It's worth it. We just wish we could get more people to be on the committees and things. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? I hate to, I'm not trying to be a panicky, but what do these jumping worms look like? Do they look like normal worms? I'm like, I feel like I need to go out in my garden with a flashlight and see if I have any, because I'm fairly close to Just Roots. Couple
Well,
miles.
let's see here.
We have to look it up on
Let's see, are there jumping worms in Massachusetts? a lot of press coverage and concern around this new invasive species of worm, which also goes by the name of Alabama jumping worm, crazy worm, or snake worm. UMass Extension.
It- on
Smooth,
this-
glossy, dark gray brown in color. A mature adult is 4 to 5 inches long.
Oh, wow.
Let's see. There's a chart that they have a chart if you go
Okay,
to
I'll look it up.
UMass that compares the two, so you can sort of see the difference in what they look
Mhm.
like.
So you're definitely going to know that it's not your average everyday worm.
Yeah, it's.
Do they
very
jump
it's
up and
different.
down and?
No, I
Oh,
think
they
they just
literally
like,
do.
oh, okay.
But it
where are
says
they
here, if you
from?
see a jumping worm, kill it.
Okay.
Yeah, it says remove and destroy any adult jumping worms if you see them. This can be done by dropping them into a bucket of soapy water or sealing them in a plastic bag. It says don't panic if the worms are located in one area of the property. Take precautions to prevent moving them to other areas of the property or to new locations.
Mhm.
Do not attempt to manage the worms with chemicals or products that are not labeled for that purpose. Currently, there are no pesticides or approved methods to manage jumping worms. Using products without this use explicitly included on the label is illegal, interestingly enough.
Can we just squish them?
Probably.
Just gonna ask that too,
I
Terry.
think that would be revolting. That would be like squishing a slug.
Well, if you've got a good pair of boots on,
Oh, yes, yeah.
You just see me running back into the house to get a cup of soapy water.
Yeah, my favorite thing is the thing of soapy water. A lot of things go in there.
Yeah.
Must have it by your
Tomato,
side.
tomato hornworms, Japanese beetles. Yeah. I know that John LaSalle, he just does the thumbnail, those Japanese beetles, he just takes their heads right off. Bing. I'm like, I don't know if I can do that.
I actually didn't have much of a problem with those this year, which was good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I have a family of bats, which makes me very happy. So I'm very
Well,
Oh,
glad
that's
yeah.
great.
my bats
Yes.
are back. Yeah,
Yes.
it makes me happy.
Are they in your attic?
No, they're outside. Um,
Oh, ours are in our attic.
Oh,
No,
are
no,
they?
we sealed that a few years ago because we did have them. But no, they had kind of disappeared for a few years, but they're back. So it's
Pat-
nice to see them at dusk floating around.
So, Pat, are these a problem, these bats in your attic?
Well, they don't bother me because I never see them, but I know they're there.
Oh, but they're probably, getting rid of all your, the bad insects. So that's good.
Right. So they must be getting out somehow. but
Yes, I mean, they're not going to just live there. They have to get out like bats that live in caves, and every night they come
Right,
out en
right.
masse.
Right.
Yes, I've seen a swarm once. I actually was up in Gill and the church, I was coming out and it was just about dusk and they just came swarming out of the church belfry. It was
Oh,
just,
wow.
it was really amazing. I'd never seen it before. It was amazing.
Well,
A little scary when you're underneath it, but
it's an amazing sight because there used to be at least a barn up right on the road going up to Charlemont. And we happened to be there at dusk and there were 1 million bats that came out of that barn.
mhm,
It is quite an extraordinary sight.
it is. Yeah. Anybody else have bats?
We have them in our yard, but I wanted to say thank you to everybody. I need to go, but
Okay.
this was great seeing who's in the garden club and
Only a small sample, did you see?
We had a
for
small
joining us,
conflict
Terry.
with a Jewish holiday today, so.
yes,
Yes,
so
there
people
is a
could-
big conflict. Thank you for joining us, Terry.
thank you.
Yes, thank you, Terry.
Nice to meet you.
Thank
Probably
you.
be joining soon when I'm not working so much.
Yes.
Sounds
I'm
great.
retiring
Yeah,
next year,
love to
so
see you. Yes, yeah.
take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Anyone else? Okay, if no one else has anything they want to ask or talk about, it's just about almost 8 o'clock. We can wrap this up if we'd like. Okay,
Sounds
so I'm going to stop the recording now. And